All right, we can begin whenever you're ready.
Okay, so Marianne, if you could just give the staff an overview of how testing will work at OCS this summer. And if they have questions, you guys just, since there's so few of us, just interrupt and ask questions.
Absolutely. Just jump in. Let me just take a minute just to describe who I am and my background, because it wasn't a straight line into COVID testing. Over the last 3 decades, I've worked in the education, youth development, and community development space. Most recently as the CEO of a nonprofit in New York City called Say Yes to Education. And we help to organize citywide collaboratives, school districts with their city and county partners to scale the wraparound supports, as well as the quality program within schools to be able to do it at scale and consistently. So things like the right ratio of social workers and summer camps and tutoring and mentoring, nutritional services, health, dental services. So I was there for 12 years, and I was the head of a nonprofit in DC called New American Schools for about a little over a decade prior to that. I've also worked at the federal government in the US Department of Education and also as a community organizer. So how did I end up as the president and CEO of a COVID testing company called C19 Safety First? It actually happened at the beginning of the pandemic. I was helping with my husband a lab in Brooklyn called the Miramis Lab to go through the process to be able to get the right authorization from the Department of Health in New York State to do COVID testing for schools. And I knew that given the lockdowns, that the learning loss and lack of access to the kind of wraparound supports that many young people need was going to be devastating. So I had finished a sabbatical with the Woodrow Wilson Foundation and got involved with Miramis. And as a result, developed the pilot for this actually at my daughter's school. So I have a daughter who is now a rising senior. It was her junior year in high school. And I went to that school and I said, I don't think we're going to be able to stay in session unless we have a way to identify asymptomatic carriers of the COVID virus, to isolate them and prevent outbreaks. And I believe that we can develop a strategy that would include this kind of very high quality, but non-invasive, low cost, weekly testing so that we can identify and again, isolate the virus. So we started this in August of last year. We had 42 weeks of programming on my daughter's campus, a K-12 campus in Westchester County. And we were able to, at the very beginning of the year, there were 3 people that were identified as COVID positive that were asymptomatic. We were able to support them and isolate them and start the first 2 months without any COVID cases. And then around predictable times when families had kids coming back from college and other traveling experiences, we ended up having also the identification of positive people, but we were able to isolate them and keep the school open. So that was how I got involved in this. As a result of doing that, a number of other schools in the region started calling and saying, can you help our school? We need this same kind of safety initiative. And so I sort of accidentally ended up in the situation where it aligned with my personal passion and my commitment to making accessible education for all, and developed a company because I knew schools, the school nurse can't manage a comprehensive testing program. It's way too much to expect. And school teachers shouldn't be expected to manage the collection of COVID samples and transporting them to a lab and then reporting them out. So my vision was, if we could lower all of those sort of operational issues and make it really easy, we could scale this kind of testing. And my primary goal was to get it into the public education system. It was very hard last year because there were no allocated funds for COVID testing in public education, unfortunately. So it's only with the recent passage of some new COVID bills that provide direct funding for schools, including charter schools, to be able to afford doing this kind of weekly testing. So I just say that about myself because it's sort of weird to be president CEO of C19 Safety First that is around COVID safety, because none of us even knew that this kind of pandemic was possible if we go back 18 months ago. So just wanted to share that. So the goals of the program is first and foremost to enable students and families to return to school safely. And we understand fear and anxiety and hesitancy around this. And that's why we support a very proactive plan of being able to bring this kind of screening process to your school on a weekly basis. And we think a big piece of this is building trust. We know that you are a small and tight-knit school community, 6th through 12th grade, which is fantastic, but probably every family member, every staff member has had a different set of experiences this past year. You may have family members that got sick and other tragedies that you may have witnessed. So what this is about is to try and create a level playing field where everybody can have confidence that the school is doing its utmost to make sure that every child, every faculty member is safe and that people trust in that. And as the rate of the COVID infection at this point, the positivity rate is going down. Some people may say, well, why do we need to test now? And the big reasons why you need to continue to plan for testing is because it's going to take us a while to get to herd immunity. So you're going to have members of your school community, even though your students are in that 12-year-old and above that they can access vaccines, they're going to have family members that perhaps are younger and don't have that. So protecting the entire school community should be about protecting the families as well. There's some concerns in vaccine hesitancy. There may be religious reasons. Not everybody is going to get vaccinated. The other concern that the scientists are talking about right now are variants. So we know about the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Right now, the variant that people are most concerned about is called the Delta variant, and it's growing pretty rapidly in the United Kingdom. If you look over the last 18 months, things that happen over in Britain come to the United States. So it's something that we need to anticipate and just we need to protect ourselves against. The vaccine is having a protective force in response to the Delta variant, but not as protective as the original variants of the SARS-CoV-2. So the fact of the matter is we're going to have a combination of potential variants until we get to herd immunity. When you get to herd immunity in the United States, you can actually prevent any new variants from being created, but that's going to take a little bit of time. So those are the goals that I would imagine you probably share as individuals and as a school. And so Jessica asked the question, so what is the specific testing program that we'll be able to bring to the Opportunity Charter School? We are partners with Mount Sinai Health System. They have opened with philanthropic support from Pershing Square Foundation, a lab that is 100% dedicated to COVID testing. Right now, it has the capacity to run 25,000 tests a day, and it's going to scale to as many as 100,000 tests a day with the nonprofit mission to serve as many New York City public school students and staff members as possible. They selected C19 Safety First and our tech partner, Verbosity, to work directly with the schools and provide you really with a very comprehensive kind of end-to-end support initiative. So the testing program itself, we see it as a 5-step process. Our conversation today is part of step 1, which is really about educating and setting up and meeting the unique needs of your school. Not every school is the same. The type of test we use is the same everywhere we go, but we want to work with you to understand the unique dynamics of your school building, your students, student needs, families, et cetera. So the first stage is really around, we're going to be providing informational materials. We'll have a Q&A document that question and answer for frequently asked questions so that that's something that family members can review. We'll also be available, as I mentioned, to have conversations, additional small groups or one-on-one, whatever's needed. And we're going to work with the school to pick the best day to test, the best location to test, and really just to work out those basic logistics. The second step of the process will actually be, how do we collect samples? So what this test is, it's a saliva-based test. It's a PCR test. You've probably heard people talk about PCR versus rapid antigen. So the difference, the PCR test is considered the best, the gold standard. It's the most sensitive. It has the highest probability of identifying the COVID virus early in its development within an individual. It can identify the virus before that individual is at a level that they're actually shedding the virus, which means they can give it to somebody else. Rapid antigen tests, people like them because they can be done really quickly on site within 10 or 15 minutes. The challenge is they're very accurate if you actually are symptomatic. If you have the virus, but you're actually showing you're having respiratory issues and other things. It's not very accurate. It misses it 50% of the time if you're what's called asymptomatic, that you're not feeling sick or exhibiting sickness behaviors. So that's why we believe in the PCR test, and working with a lab, which also makes it much more accurate. Because Mount Sinai is a nonprofit teaching hospital, they are providing the lowest cost PCR test at the quickest turnaround time that's available. So literally within 12 to max 24 hours, your individual sample as a staff member or teacher and your students' samples will come back with a positive or a negative result. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So the sample collection process, we just try to make that super easy. We set up in the school site, we bring our staff there. They handle all of the logistics. There is a process of, a test kit is really just a 12 milliliter plastic tube with the screw off cap. And I'll send a picture of this. I should have had a visual of it right here, but I can send a picture. All an individual does, and there's an instruction sheet inside of that test kit. The instruction sheet just helps anybody that's going to take a test to learn how to just take the top off of the vial, to pool saliva in your mouth. So just to take the time to allow the liquid to develop in your mouth. Tricks are rubbing of the cheeks, thinking about foods that make your mouth water, like limes and other things like that. And honestly, just giving it a little bit of time to build up. And then the process is literally just to drool, to just not try to spit in a vial, because that doesn't work very well. It creates a lot of bubbles, it gets very messy, but literally just to let that liquid fall out of your mouth and into the tube. Inside of the tube, there will be a little line at the 2 milliliter level, which is very small. It's just about that big. And that's how much liquid that you need to get in the vial. Then anybody that's testing puts the cap back on the vial and puts it back inside of their plastic bag. That plastic bag is going to have a sticker on the bag. And again, I'll send a picture of this. That sticker is going to have a unique code that for each one of you as staff members, you will have a unique QR code. So during COVID, anybody that didn't know what a QR code is, we probably know now, because every sign and every restaurant that seeks to be contactless has you hover over a QR code and then go to the menu. In this case, we're able to have the capacity for you just to bring your sample to the collection spot. For the first couple of times, we're actually going to have you make your sample with us so that we can help you just learn how to do it and be there to answer questions. But by probably week 3, you'll be able to just make your sample when you wake up at home. So you don't have to do it in front of people. You put it in your bag, and then you'll come to the drop-off spot at the school. And you'll just literally put your bag inside of a little C19 receptacle. And what we will do, our collection specialists, we will link your code anonymously to the barcode that you submit each week. And then the vials, your sample vials, are transported to the Mount Sinai COVID lab at Beth Israel Hospital in downtown Manhattan for testing. So that's basically the process. It's saliva from your mouth into the tube, put it into your unique plastic bag and close it tightly, and drop it off at the school site. As I mentioned, again, the first couple of times, we'll do sessions with teachers and staff, and then we'll do sessions with the students just to make the sample. And honestly, after the first time, you'll probably have it down, but we'll definitely account for a couple of times for you to get comfortable. And then the rest of the process is not visible to you until you get your results. We've organized, we work with lab logistics. They will come and pick up the samples shortly after we finish the collection event. They'll transport the samples from your school to the COVID lab at Beth Israel. The lab, again, within 12 to 24 hours max from receipt of the samples, will put them through a multi-stage process that's highly accurate, and they'll be able to determine whether or not your sample is negative or positive. And right now, with the rates of infection where they are, very high degree of probability that it'll be negative, but you're still going to feel much safer seeing that week over week. And particularly as things start to pop up and you hear things in the news about, okay, the variant has made it to the US, it really instills a lot of confidence and assuredness that you're in a safe environment at your school. Once the results are completed at the Mount Sinai COVID lab, our platform, C19 Safety First Verbosity, will facilitate being able to send you immediately. If you have a negative test result, you'll receive it by email or SMS text message, the result. If for any reason somebody does not have technology, we'll work on another solution. But that's the easiest, most efficient way, is to send it via the technology portal. In the event that somebody is positive, we have a call center at Mount Sinai Hospital that has the capacity to translate the test result and provide support to you as a staff person or family members of students that test positive, to explain to them what the result is and what the next step should be. So that'll be personalized. We will communicate direct to the school. So school leadership, approved school leadership will have that information, so they also can provide support, but we'll then also work directly with families to ensure that whatever support help is needed is provided. And again, in up to 200 languages. So we can double check every language that is at your school and make sure that we can accommodate any family member that may be faced with that positive result. And so that's it in a nutshell. And maybe I'll stop for a second because you may have some questions.
If you have questions, feel free to unmute or just pop it in the chat. I think you were very thorough with all your explanations.
Well, I've tested myself for the last 48 weeks. As a family, we test, and so tried to give as much of a nuanced sense to it as I possibly could. But we're very hands-on. You know, we support the students as if they're our own children. We're very passionate and committed to this work, and we want it to run as smoothly as possible for you as a school.
In the email, it said that this recording will be sent to the parents as well. When can we be expecting that?
So within that 12 to 24 hour time period, Tatiana, we would notify. So an important piece that I didn't describe, which I'll describe now, is how do we have the contact information, the accurate contact information to be able to facilitate notifications. So first of all, for every student, you know, if you have students that are 18 years old, they can receive the notification directly. But I would imagine probably the standard would be for the field that is the email and the phone number for a minor. Any of the students would actually be the parent or guardian designated to get that information. And this, the very first step in the setup of the testing program, There are educational opportunities like this. We also have to work closely with the school to upload the roster of every student, every staff member that will be testing on a regular basis. There are 6 fields of information that include the first and last name, as I mentioned, a unique email address and a unique phone number that will facilitate the notifications. And then we also recommend a unique student identification or faculty. If you already assign everybody an identification code, if there were 2 students that had the same name, we would be able to differentiate between them. And then finally, there's a number that the leadership of the school will help us to assign, which is a group number. We call them pools. If you want all of the faculty, the staff to be in one pool and all the students to be in another, or if you want to group them by grade, you can have number 1 is 6th grade, number 2 is 7th grade. We can work with you to have those types of groupings. If you have different individuals at the school that sort of oversee different parts, different groups of students, we can facilitate the reports being shared with the appropriate people through those groups. So that, Tatiana, maybe that's more than you wanted to know, but we would directly notify, and that's why we need accurate email and phone numbers.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And, parents and staff, if you have any questions, after the fact, please also feel free to email us and we can, be in contact with Marianne to get your answers or your questions answered.
And my arm, Veranda Baker, also put her email up in the chat area. So Veranda can be a resource as well for any questions that you might have.
So does anybody have any questions left? Okay.
So I just, before we hang up, I mean, I want to reflect a little bit on my experience working just with lots of schools and some corporations. I think that the general feeling at the beginning of it is just, what is this going to be and how is it going to work and will it be disruptive? And I just want to assure you within a week or 2, it totally transforms into, I'm so grateful that we're going to do this each week. It's simple, it's non-invasive, it's accurate, it's a rapid, quick turnaround time for the result. And it just allows everybody to feel like we have a protective force around us in the school. And I very much hope that that's the experience of everybody that's participating in today's call. And again, we're here to support you in any way possible and very much look forward to working with you.
Us too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, Ms. Marcoux, you muted?
We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for the clarity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a great